Did the United States make the right decision to withdraw troops from Afghanistan last August? It's January 2022, and Americans are divided. Let's first dive deeper into the issue.
This is the Afghanistan we've left behind. This is life under the rule of the Taliban. Starvation and poverty have become ruthless partners in the collapse of the nation, making desperation Afghanistan's main export.
I lose my everything. Every day at night, I cry.
Health, security, human rights, now all in dire crisis.
Well, Afghanistan is a time bomb, and it is ticking. You have an interconnected humanitarian disaster. You have an emboldened foreign terrorist, and then you have all the spillover effects that comes from a destabilized Afghanistan.
After the Taliban forcefully overthrew the elected government, the Western world retaliated, pulling all funding and freezing Afghanistan's assets. Billions of dollars simply disappeared from government coffers. And an already fragile economy teeters close to collapse. Jobs lost, prices surging, food aid suspended.
The entire middle class of Afghanistan have vanished, and 22 million people are on the verge of starvation.
My guest today is Hussain Rezai, a native Afghani who evacuated the country in the aftermath of the Taliban takeover of Kabul in August 2021. In July 2017, his fiancee, Najiba Bahar, was killed in a Taliban suicide bombing in the same city of Kabul. Najiba had returned to Afghanistan after acquiring a master's degree in computer science abroad. Her hope was to provide young Afghan women and those from deprived communities with inspiration to pursue higher education. Hussain started the Najiba Foundation in her honor. At first just a library, the foundation expanded to also include a solar-powered computer lab and a girls' volleyball team. In October 2021, after their takeover, the Taliban destroyed the library, ransacked the computer lab, and the volleyball players went into hiding for fear of retribution. In this episode, we discuss the Najiba Foundation's interactions with the Taliban, whether accusations of the Afghan people not fighting for themselves are accurate, the future of women's and human rights under the new Taliban rule, if foreign intervention is preferred, and more. Whether you agree or disagree with today's guest, I invite you to join with an open mind as we work to heal the division on the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. Hussain, thank you for joining me today. Can you introduce yourself?
Thank you very much. I am the co-founder and director of Najiba Foundation. In addition to that, I'm an anti-corruption researcher. I have 10 years of frontline anti-corruption experience in Afghanistan. Before coming to Italy, I was working as a head of research and institutional development at the Office of the Ombudsperson, which was part of the President's Office. Previously, I was working as a senior researcher at Independent Joint Anti-Corruption Monitoring and Evaluation Committee. So I have 10 years of anti-corruption research experience in Afghanistan and also working in education sector in Afghanistan.
What is the Najiba Foundation?
Najiba Foundation, established on July 2019, keep the memory of Najiba alive. Najiba was killed through a suicide attack by Taliban in 24th July 2017 while she came back from Japan from her master's degree. I and Najiba planned to have our wedding ceremony just weeks after the suicide attack happened in Kabul. I and her friends and her family decided to establish the Najiba Memorial Library to keep her memories alive and also document the cost of war in Afghanistan and also fight against forgetfulness, which the people and the society encourage to forget whatever happens in Afghanistan. We tried to fight against forgetfulness, and also we wanted to do some education works to fight against terrorism and violence as it is being said that the education is the most powerful weapon for changing the situation. So that is why we established the Najiba Foundation on July 23rd, 2019. We established the Najiba Library. Then we established the Najiba Computer Lab. We established a scholarship and the girls' volleyball team. And we're also implementing numerous educational and cultural programs in Daikundi province, which is one of the remote and isolated provinces of Afghanistan, and Najiba town. So that was a brief introduction about Najiba Foundation.
Can you walk me through how the Najiba Foundation was operating prior to the Taliban takeover?
While we opened the Najiba Foundation on July 2019, it was warmly welcomed by the local community in Daikundi province because such initiatives were not there in the local community. Even the province is very, very isolated and also very underserved by national government and also international community. The international community also didn't pay attention to Daikundi province, and it has kept so isolated from the center. So the people welcomed the initiative. Mostly the girls were coming to the library and also then were joining our computer lab programs, online sessions, and also our cultural programs. In the years, we understood that more than 50% of our participants and beneficiaries are girls in the Daikundi province. So it was warmly welcomed by the local community. The foundation was operating and running by people donations. We received donations from Afghan diaspora, from outside of Afghanistan, and also we received financial donations and also other support from the people inside Afghanistan. So the foundation was running based on people donation, not any international fund or government fund. In the library, we had around 12,000 books in different fields and different subjects. We were training computer programs like Microsoft Office for the students and also even for the government officials. We were also conducting online sessions because in Daikundi province, we had a few people to train and teach our participants. So we initiated online sessions. We had guests from Australia, from Europe, through our online sessions for boys and girls in Daikundi province. They were delivering their speech and presentation in different subjects. The aim was to break the geographic isolation, which we calling the geographic prison. That is how we were doing at Najiba Foundation since July 2019 until the moment of the government of Afghanistan collapsed to the Taliban. I also want to mention to you that just days after the collapse of the government of Afghanistan, it was like 3 days after the collapse of the government, I have been informed by my colleagues from Daikundi province that the Taliban attacked the Najiba Foundation. They partially destroyed the library and also looted the computer equipments. So since then, we do not have access to Najiba Foundation library and also the computer lab, and we do not know how much is the damage. We have received some videos and pictures through some of our friends who are in Daikundi province, but we do not have access to our resources. And our volleyball team is not doing their exercise because the Taliban group banned sport, education, and films and other things for women. So they are living in fear and so scared because of the past activities that we had in Daikundi province.
What was your foundation's interaction like with the Taliban, and what was their justification for damaging or destroying your foundation?
So after that, we didn't dare to talk with the Taliban. That's why this destruction happened, because Najiba himself was killed by the Taliban on July 2017, and it was a memorial for her and also for other victims in Afghanistan. And also it was offering modern education in Afghanistan, regardless of gender segregation and something like that. My sense is that they just want to clean the the evidence of the crime that they have committed in the past. So we did not have any interaction with them so far. The media contacted them that why their fighters destroyed and looted the Najiba Foundation library and computer lab, but they, as expected, denied this news. For a long time, we were not able to share this news with the media, but later we decided to inform the people what is going on in Afghanistan.
And what led you to leave the country of Afghanistan?
I have had the opportunity to stay in Europe in the past years. In 2018, I was in Austria, in Vienna. I also was in Lithuania years before, but I didn't want to stay in Europe or other countries as a refugee because my aim was to contribute in Afghanistan rebuilding and also making the situation better. But when I got informed that the Taliban attacked the Najiba Foundation, then I felt that everything is finished for us. We cannot do anything. Even we do not have any tools to resist and fight. That was, I decided to leave. And my family was also pushing me to leave as soon as you can. All people were scared and also were living in fear while the government of Afghanistan collapsed, especially in the first years in the first days and the first weeks. All people were almost quarantined by Taliban in their homes. So no one were able to come out. The people were in panic and still are in panic and shock. That is why I decided to leave and continue my resistance and fight in another way from abroad, from outside.
What does life look like today in the Daikundi province under Taliban rule?
I have contacted several people in Daikundi province. My colleagues, those who were working in the government or civil society organizations in the past. The education is not functioning. I can say that everything is totally shut down, and not only in Daikundi province, but across the country. The health system is not able to deliver service for the patients because of the lack of medicine, because of the lack of doctors and else, because they have not paid for the past 3-4 months. The people are starving, and also the education system is on the verge of collapse. And among all of this, the people are living in fear, especially when it comes to the Hazara people in Afghanistan. They fear of losing their lands, or they fear for forced displacement, they fear for genocide, they fear for systematic discrimination. Everyone lost their hope. And that is why even the Dubai students did not go to school, which is not officially banned by the Taliban, because everyone lost their hope. They do not go to school. All people are trying to leave the country. And we may have a big refugee crisis in the next months or years.
Based on this explanation, what's a common misconception that those that don't live in Afghanistan have about the country?
People outside of Afghanistan think that Afghanistan is a homogeneous society of one culture and one people and one ethnic group, which is not true. Afghanistan is the land of minorities. There are multi cultures, ethnic groups, language. The other point, the think that all Afghanistan people are violent or terrorists, which is not true. And also, the people, especially when it comes to the recent collapse of government of Afghanistan, think that the Afghanistan national force or national army didn't fight against Taliban. I think that is not true. They are not allowed by the corrupt leadership to fight against Taliban. And also, my understanding is the collapse was like a surrender process, like a handover process. We feel that Afghanistan is going to be handed over to Taliban. And that is why some of the provinces were handed over to the Taliban without any fight. And the people wanted to fight against Taliban. They are not allowed and equipped and financed and supported. The last point I want to mention about your question is that out of Afghanistan, there are the international community understand Afghanistan based on sayings of a few politicians who are in US or Europe. They are traveling in different countries, like the corrupt politicians. They have talked for the Westerners. And the Westerners, the international community, do not have direct contact with the people of Afghanistan.
What is a common misconception that those outside of Afghanistan have about the Taliban specifically?
It is a very difficult question for me. I'm feeling these days that the international community is going to somehow recognize the government, or at least the initial steps are being taken by some countries, and this make me more concerned and also insulted because they have killed many around 60,000 national armies and more than 100,000 civilians in the past 1 year.
You mentioned that many Afghans were not allowed to fight or resist against the Taliban during their takeover earlier this year. What do you see as the ramifications for protesting or attempting to fight back against the Taliban today?
The people inside Afghanistan are in shock and in fear. They really do not know what to do and how to do, because this fast collapse shocked everyone inside Afghanistan and outside of Afghanistan. I know that some initial resistance started inside Afghanistan by Afghanistan people, especially by women, demanding their rights to education and also the rights to their work, because all women are removed from their position by Taliban and education is banned for girls and women. And also there is going to be violence resistance by some of people, especially in Panjshir. They had the resistance in the past weeks and months. It has still continuing until now. And the people outside of Afghanistan is also resisting against the Taliban, but there are some people who are trying to lobby in favor of Taliban as well in US and European countries because of ethnic reasons and because of the ethnic conflict that we had in Afghanistan.
For my next question, I'll first start with the news clip.
This is the demonstration the Taliban wants the world to see. Female students fully veiled carrying propaganda signs in English celebrating the Taliban's decision to allow women to attend university. Afghanistan's Minister for Higher Education made the announcement with some caveats. The teachers have to be women and not all courses will be taught. The Taliban tasered and beat this group of students who expect education as they know it to end.
You know, you might have women attend university, but basically being taught what the Taliban's interpretation of the Quran and Islamic law is for female roles in society and female behavior, for instance. So, you know, I suspect there'll just be an indoctrination exercise.
What do you see will be the future educational opportunities available to women in Afghanistan?
There are many ifs. If the international community not pressure Taliban government to have an inclusive government, if the international community do not pressure Taliban to recognize the women's rights, so if the current situation continue, if the Taliban exclusive government continue in Afghanistan because they run the government by violence and exclusion, so if this situation continue, the education will collapse very soon because the Taliban is not able to pay for teachers. The teachers have not been paid for the last 4 months. I heard that Germany and also Norway promised to pay the teachers' salary, which not yet happened. And also the Taliban officially announced that they are not going to allow men to teach girls above grade 6. If the Taliban does not allow girls to teach, how they can expect to have women teachers in education system? If you not allow girls to study in the higher classes or university, then how you expect to have women doctors in health system? There is a huge contradiction and paradox in their sayings. And also I have heard that they are going to change the educational curriculum. So they will not implement the current curriculum in schools. They will change the subjects very easily. They do not care about the curriculum development process, which is very technical and also which is very complicated process. They will easily sit together and remove the subjects and replace with the religious scripts and teach based on their own interpretation, a conservative and extremist interpretation of Islam. So they will Islamize and radicalize the new generation of Afghanistan and will produce a new generation of jihadists. That is my concern. And there are many concerns and questions about technical part, which right now all systems are running by mullahs, by clerics, even that is health ministry or education ministry or ministry of telecommunication. The students in Afghanistan cannot buy textbook and also cannot afford to go to school. Recently, in a few provinces, Taliban started background check for teachers. They are going to filtering teachers. For instance, they do not allow the teachers like open-minded or those who teach like human rights or modern education. There's much concern that they only allow those teachers who have sympathy with them and accept their ideologies, accept their violence, and remove qualified teachers from the education system. The people of Afghanistan lost their hope about the future. I asked my friends who are teachers in Afghanistan, and they told me that from a class of 80 students, right now there are around 10 students in the class. The teachers are not coming to school because they have not been paid, and they also have lost their hope for the future. The main part is because of the recent collapse, even the continued suicide attacks, violence against education in Afghanistan in the past 20 years. Overall, the people are really tired of the situation because of the continued violence in the past 4 decades. They think that they have to do anything that they can make a future for their sons and daughters. Whatever the challenge is, they have to accept that one, but to make something for their children. That is why they take the risk to get out of the country. And education is on the verge of collapse.
Is there any circumstance when you can see the Najiba Foundation rebuilding and reteaching again in Afghanistan currently?
We received many messages and calls from our beneficiaries and from students that they have missed the library, the computer lab, and they ask and demand to start as quickly as possible. But when we see the situation in the local community, they only allow for men and boys. But even if we start right now the library and the Najiba Foundation, even the boys and men do not come to the library and computer lab because they lost their hope. And they say that, okay, if we do not have job, if we do not have any future, so why we should come to the library and study book? That's why I think this point should be analyzed very details. We're discussing that, okay, if we want to start the operation, then we asked many people, especially the boys, we understood that they will not come to the library and our programs. The demands is mostly from girls. They wish to have the library and computer lab open very soon.
Well, for my next question, we'll transition to a news clip.
We spent over $1 trillion, over 20 years. We trained and equipped with modern equipment over 300,000 Afghan forces. And Afghan leaders have to come together. We lost death and injury, thousands of American personnel. They've got to fight for themselves, fight for their nation. The United States, I'll insist we continue to keep the commitments we made of providing close air support, making sure that their Air Force functions and is operable, resupplying their forces with food and equipment, and paying all their salaries. But they've got to want to fight.
Should the United States and other foreign nations maintain a presence in Afghanistan?
I wish. This is not only my wish, this is the wish of most of the people of Afghanistan. This is not the wish of Taliban or their sympathizers or followers, but this is the wish of the people of Afghanistan who are opposite of Taliban ideology and violence. They wish to have the U.S. presence in Afghanistan, especially when it comes to Hazara people who have been persecuted in the history of Afghanistan. They were supporting the international community in Afghanistan in the past 1 year, and right now Taliban is taking revenge from them because Taliban is saying that you are supporting these infidels, you are supporting Americans, you are supporting Europeans, you are not part of our jihad against these infidels. You are back and you have to go to US or outside of Afghanistan with your friends. So there is a wish of the people to have a very strong presence of not only US, but the international community in Afghanistan.
And do you think without foreign interjection, there's currently a way and that the Taliban rule will be removed?
No. There is one hope, but that seems very costly for the people of Afghanistan, that if the Taliban government continue and they are not able to govern in Afghanistan due to many reasons, financial reasons, technical reasons, and so on, and their government itself pave the way for its collapse in Afghanistan, and the people will raise against them. The people do not tolerate the current situation in the next months or years. So I'm sure that the people will uprise against this situation, but that would be very costly for the people. So that is why I'm insisting on international community intervention to change the situation, pressure Taliban to make real inclusive government, not just bringing some people from different ethnic groups as a symbol, or do not respect freedom of speech, do not respect women's rights and other values. So the international community should really make sure that at least part of the achievements that they have made in the past 1 year are secured.
Hussain, is there a final message that you have for listeners?
The international community should not put Afghanistan at this critical or at this difficult moments alone. There are many ways that the international community, the audience, can support the Afghanistan people, especially those who do not have anything to eat or those who lost their hope for education. So there are many ways to support the people inside Afghanistan financially. They can start and run educational initiatives for girls and women. They can also do some advocacy for changing the situation in Afghanistan. The situation is very, very difficult. And because of the fear, the people are silenced and the people are not able to report. And even right now, we do not know the depth of the difficulties inside Afghanistan.
Well, Hussain, if someone wants to learn more about your work and the Najiba Foundation, where can they go?
Najiba Foundation website, najibafoundation.org. We have location in Daikundi province. We hope that the situation get better and resume our operation and activities in the next months and be part of change.
Well, Hussain, I'm grateful to have had this conversation today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much.
Whether you agree or disagree with today's guests, I thank you for joining us with an open mind. If there's a guest or topic you'd like to have on the show, you can message me on all social media platforms through the handle Heal Our Division. Take care and stay kind. We have more in common than that which divides us.
Taliban.